So I remember when I was new to this type of community, and I was a little nervous. I had taken a pretty long sabbatical from church, 15 years, just to make sure it wasn't for me. And my old version, I love what Rich says, what women? They are in there. You have to look a little harder. They don't get prominent billing, but they're there. And for those that are wise, you begin to read those messages and understand it differently. But I remember the minister saying, Father, Mother, God, we give thanks. And I was like, huh? Father, Mother, God? That's new. Because what we know is that this divine is neither male nor female, as Jesus said. It is a presence, a power, an intelligence that is represented in both the masculine and the feminine energy. And so it's a lovely and wonderful thing to begin to move out of our modality of thinking of God as Father, as male, as masculine, as creative, as intentional to that divine, nurturing, loving presence that the ideal of motherhood is. Now, where are our moms today? Just raise your hand. Thank you. We bless you. Who was the perfect mother? I just want to know. Okay. I knew there was... Okay. For the rest of you, there was some mistakes along the way, right? Because that's called life. It's called life. But there's the ideal of the nurturing presence of the divine. And I love being able to understand and to move into that awareness of this infinite being that cares greatly and deeply for us. What a beautiful song that is, and what a beautiful, just amazing how well that was put together. But as I said, I know that for many of us, we were either not the perfect mother or did not have the perfect mother. Or we're new to motherhood, or we've lost our mother. So these holidays come with the fullness of life. So we talk about it at the beginning of there's the richness, there's the wonder, there's the joy, there's the sadness, there's the sorrow. And we've been looking at this idea based on the book of Eckhart Tolle of the power of now, of learning to be present for what is in this moment. So often we have this conversation with life. Let's call it not a conversation, let's call it an argument. Because the argument we have with life sometimes is you shouldn't be this way. You ever had that argument with life? I'm not the only one. Byron Katie says that, every time I argue with the way it is, I lose. Because it still is the way it is. So there's a power that comes in living and learning to be present in the now. In fact, Eckhart Tolle says us that the only power there is really learning to be in the now. That in truth, all that exists is now. He says to us very lovely, he says, most people's lives are run by desire and fear. Desire is the need to add something to yourself in order to be yourself more fully. All fear is the fear of losing something and thereby becoming diminished and being less. But he says these two movements obscure the fact that being cannot be given or taken away. Being in its fullness is already with you now. You see, I often say to people, guess what? You are right now, in this moment, as spiritual as you are ever going to be. You're thinking, Now, that is not to say that you might learn to act in a more spiritual way. You might learn to be more open to the truth of who you are. You might learn to live from that awareness of your spiritual well-being and have that influence and populate your life. But the truth is, and this is the fundamental truth that we teach, is you are a divine being right here, right now. That you have the whole package. And you say, oh, no, Marty, you don't know the mistakes that I've made in my life. And I would say to you, yes, that was divine being making mistakes, learning and growing, becoming more. And you say, but someday I will be. And I would say, no, you won't. You are now. Do you understand? It is all now. Now, I know at least one of you, and maybe two, I'm not sure. I can't tell exactly who you are, but I get the vibe. It's somewhere over here. Are saying, oh, Marty, let us be practical. Oh, you and your woo-woo, let's just live in the now and be all open and receptive and all peaceful and joyful and wonderful. But I live in the real world. And in the real world, we have to plan and we have to manage and we have to make some things happen. So how does that work? And I say unto you, there is nothing wrong with setting goals. There is nothing wrong with having a vision of possibility. There is nothing wrong with setting intention and looking at where you want to go. But the problem for many of us is we set the intention and then we try and live there. Or we become overwhelmed by that. So some of you have been following the Marty saga called Running a Half Marathon. And so a year ago, I made the mistake of announcing to this congregation that I was going to run a half marathon. Like I said, the filter between the mind and the mouth is very thin. And then, once you say it to 200 or 300 of your closest friends, all of a sudden they're like, oh, how's that going? And so I did it. By the grace of God, I did it. And so, yay, I know. And so I was in Sun Valley with some friends, and they were talking. They said, how did that half marathon go? And I was like, it was great. I'll never do that again. Right? And then I was like, now that's an odd statement. It was fabulous. I won't do that again. And as I thought about that, I was like, that was really an amazing experience. It taught me that I am, even for an old dude, I can still move around if I need to. It taught me that there's power in the mind and in the body. And it was just such a magnificent day. It was like the perfect weather in the perfect setting along the perfect stream. And so it was great. My friend Michael ran it with me, and I said, we were neck and neck, and then the race started. And I never saw him, 4 hours later, I'm like. So I thought, what if? Try this on for a second. What if I actually trained for it? So this year, I got this great idea at the beginning of the year that I was going to make some changes, and I was going to do it differently. I was not going to do it because I said it to you and now I was obligated. I was going to do it as a part of my own approach to self-care and living a different life. And so I went to the source of all knowledge, which is the internet, and found a training program. And in that training program, it says, okay, here's what you want to do. This week you do this. This week you do this. This week you do this. And in 12 weeks, the week before, you're going to run 10 miles. And then when you get to the marathon, which is 13.1, and I want credit for the 0.1, is you run it. So I was like, cool. So I got my plan, and get this, I am following it. I know, who knew? I was trying to do the science of mind visualization approach last year. Like, I'm just going to see myself running a 13.1 mile, You know this. I know metaphysicians are like that. Oh yeah, I'm in the visioning stage. Yeah, I'm just going to vision my way there. Now, visioning is important. Don't get me wrong. First chapter in my book, which is coming soon. But vision without action is fantasy. Right? Right? Thank you. So, I began. And I'm running along and I'm doing this. And so, last week, a week ago, I did my first 10 miles. So I'm a month ahead of my schedule. Can you believe it? Yesterday I did another 10 mile. My long run is 10 mile at this point. And so here's the thing about running 10 miles. if you try and run 10 miles, you'll never do it. It's much better to run 1 mile 10 times in a row. Right? You think about it. Anyways, I was laughing we had a wonderful class yesterday. I was so privileged to be a part of this Science of Mind basic principles class. And we were talking, and someone was saying, I'm trying to get to 30 minutes of meditation every day. And I was like, where did you start? And I was like, well, I didn't. And it was like, oh, okay, well, maybe we want to ease into that, It's like, if you want to run a half marathon, you're so inspired by my story, I know you are. You want to say, I want to run a half marathon. Don't start with the half marathon. Start with the first step. Start with a program. Try a 5K out, see how that is, right? And train for that. But you see, this is such an American phenomenon, I find. We want what we want it now. I always call it microwave consciousness. 2 minutes in the microwave and there's my product, right? And we want our lives to be changed. I noticed with myself, I was having this conversation with myself about, I can't believe in 4 months you haven't lost all the weight that you took 30 years to accumulate. What's up with that? Right? But that's how we are, isn't it? So what we learn, and what I'm learning is this process, which is so much more than me running, is something about that idea of how do you show up present in the moment. That we need to learn to pay attention to what's happening now. Because if I get into, here's what I've watched. I know myself now well enough to watch what happens. So I set my goal. Look at my little training program. Today I'm going to run 10 miles. Yay. I go to the gym. I get all cute and wonderful looking. All about the right equipment, right? And then I go. And now, for me, a 10-mile walk is really what it is 2.5 hours. That's where we are right now. About a half hour in, I'm cursing you. Now, I don't know how I made this about you, but I did. And how you guys make me, you're right, little victim consciousness going on. But then you move beyond that. It's like, okay, breathe into the moment. What's going on? Keep walking. And then something transcends that. It's like, okay, this is feeling good. Then so you just keep walking, keep doing the thing, you keep taking the next step in the moment. If I find myself too out of bed, I breathe and go, what's going on? What's going on with my breath? What's going on with my posture? What's going on? Because what happens when we stop being present? We stop breathing deeply. Have you noticed this? If you've ever been freaking out about whatever it is you freak out about and had some loving soul say to you, honey, take a breath. It's the first thing, right? Take a breath. This is the greatest way to move ourselves into the now. Take a deep breath. What am I feeling? Okay, what's going on? Take the next step. About 8 miles. Now we're 2 hours. Now here's the conversation. You have to preach tomorrow. Again, it's always about you. And maybe it would be wise for you just to stop now so you're at your best tomorrow right? I know what you said you were going to do. You breathe, you take the next step, right? And then somehow, after a period of time, 10 miles is done. And then you get to feel good about having kept your word. It's like, wow. The difference between 8 miles and 10 miles is not that big of a deal unless you stop. The difference between learning how to meditate for a minute and 2 minutes is not that big of a deal. And if you can go to 2 minutes, you can go to 4 minutes. And if you can go to 4 minutes, you can learn to do 8. And eventually, your practice becomes a part of your life. You see, there's a reason that we call it a practice. How's your spiritual practice? What does this imply? Can you figure out the key word in here? It's not spiritual. It is the practice. It is the discipline of being still and learning to pray, learning to meditate, learning to set aside. Because in those glimpses, this idea, what Eckhart Tolle is saying is what the Zen Buddhist masters have taught us, is there's a gap, there's a place. So when the Zen master says, what is the sound of one hand clapping? there's a moment in our mind where like, I don't know. There's a gap. It's the gap between the question and the answer. Now, the mind wants to take over and analyze that. But what the whole cone is designed to do is to help us move into the gap. And in the gap, we begin to realize that there is a presence that is transcendent of mind. So we talked about last week, we are not our minds. We are not our bodies. We are not our behavior. We are not what we do. We are a sentient being, a divine being that has a mind, that has a body, that does stuff, that makes mistakes, that learns new ways of doing things. And so as we can learn to practice how to be in this holy instant, we begin to discover the powerful words that everything is a present and available for us now. As we're learning this approach to affirmative prayer, we are learning that we are not affirming to the universe, someday I will be rich. Why? I always say to universal mind, 1,000,000 years is no big deal. So when you put it out there in the future, it's not now. So we proclaim and announce our reality as existing now because spirit exists in its wholeness and fullness only in this instant. And so we announce and proclaim, I am an abundant being. I am aware of my wholeness, of my divinity, of my perfection. I allow greater good to be revealed through me in this moment. And as I move into that awareness, it guides me to the next moment. So we are not saying, don't have a plan, don't have a vision for your life. What we are saying is cast the vision and learn to live in this present moment. Open ourselves to what is. As I said, so often what happens for us is we get stuck in our past, in who we were. Whatever big mistake you made, you want to hold on to that. Or we get so engaged in our future possibility or our future worry that we aren't present for what is. Mary Morrissey, in this one of her wonderful classes, talks about this. She says, sometimes people come to me and they say, oh, I'm just not good at visualizing. She says, really? When your child is 2 hours late and has not called you, what's happening in your head? Don't tell me you can't visualize. Most of us just haven't developed the skill of visualizing the life we want. And when we begin to understand that it is all present and available now, that the divine presence is whole, perfect, and complete here now, and only here and now, we realize that we don't have, I love what Eckhart Tolle says. He says, so often we want to declare our problem, but he says there's no problems. We just breathe into the moment and we realize there are some life situations. Some of them we like, some of them we don't. Some of them we want to argue with, some of them we're okay with accepting. Byron Katie says every time I argue with reality, reality wins. The what is. But when we can simply stop seeing these things as problems that we have to solve and that casts us into all the things we're going to do. Do you ever have, do you ever do this? Do you ever have this conversation in your head with somebody you're going to see or you're planning on seeing? And you work out your whole argument? I don't know why I'm going to tell you the story, but I'm going to tell you this story. I remember when I came out as a gay man. And so I was proud and powerful and strong around that. So rather than tell my dad, I told my dad's wife. Yes, a profile in courage. Thank you very much. And so I knew we had this trip. My dad had a plane. We were flying back from Albuquerque to Phoenix. And so I was so ready for this conversation because I knew he knew. Why? Because I told his wife and I knew she'd say. And so I was like, so I'm so ready for this conversation. So my dad says to me, So Debbie tells me you're gay. Ready. I'm so ready because I planned this whole conversation. And I said, yeah. He said, Well, it's not what I would have chosen for you, but I love you. I just want you to be happy. I was so mad. How dare you? I have this brilliant argument why it's okay for me to be me in the way I am, and you're just going to accept me? Oh, no, I do not think so. I'm so glad I'm the only one that does stuff like this, right? And so we moved into the now, and we had a beautiful and very touching moment, right? But I had planned this whole thing that never happened. How much time and energy do we spend in our lives mapping out things that are never going to happen? Right? Instead of just being present with what is. And then when we're present and we tap into that intelligence that is beyond our mind, the new insight, new wisdom, new possibility comes forward that guides us as we address our life situations. It's all about learning to live in the now. In the Bible, Jesus taught this, and I think he taught this over and over and over. And he said to us, there's a place, there's an awareness. He said, this kingdom of heaven is not here or there, but rather the kingdom of the divine is within us. And so as we are learning to live in the divine, he said this wonderful passage, the greatest prosperity affirmation there is. Therefore, I tell you, do not worry about your life, what you will eat or what you will drink, about your body, what you will wear. Is not life more than food and the body more than clothes? Look at the birds of the air. They do not sow or reap or store away in barns, and yet your heavenly Father, Mother feeds them. Are you not much more valuable than they? Can any one of you, by worrying, add a single hour to your life? And he goes on to say, why do you worry about your clothes? Pay attention to the lilies of the field. What he is teaching us is that there is a way of being in trust with the divine. When Jesus said to his disciples, leave that behind, people have interpreted that as a way of that we are meant to have a life of poverty. But what he was saying was move into a life of trust, move into a life of faith, move into an awareness that our divine source will work through us and bring forth our greater good. We must live in the abundance in order for prosperity to be revealed. When we moved into the consciousness of chasing that thing, we move into fear, and we're in fear because we don't think we can have it. So we think we need to make it happen, right? But there's a way of being in the world where we're in the presence of the divine and we are making it welcome. We say, I am abundant being. I am guided by divine intelligence. I am whole, perfect, and complete right now. And I allow my life to unfold in ways of peace, in ways of joy, and it is good. So he says, therefore, do not worry about tomorrow, for tomorrow will take care of itself. Each day is sufficient unto its own. As we learn to be spiritual beings in human form, and we learn to practice living in the now, it is okay to set intentions, it's okay to hold a vision, but it all happens in the now awareness, in the peaceful state that allows a greater good to reveal itself for us and through us. It is a great gift to be in this teaching, and it is a great gift to be in this community together, as we are learning to live more powerful and abundant lives by becoming more powerful and abundant beings, by recognizing what is true, that we are each divine, that we have all spiritual wholeness available now. And so I just want you to know that wherever you are on this journey, our greater good is revealed. Be in the moment. Breathe deeply. You know, my 12-step friends who've overcome addiction have learned a very powerful phrase, and it's called one day at a time. A friend told me that as I looked at never being able to drink again, it was insurmountable. But when I learned I could get through a day, then all I have to do is get through today. Tomorrow I'll get through that. My friend Carol Harris, as she was going through the deep grief of losing her dear husband, she said, it's not a day at a time for me, it's a moment-by-moment experience. I breathe into the moment. And when I get through this moment, I move to the next. There's power in living in what is right now. There's power in making ourselves available. There is power in living in the now. Know that wherever you are in this journey, that you are loved, that you are nurtured, you are supported in being fully who you are. You are right now as spiritual as you will ever be. So let us allow more of that to be revealed. Please join me in prayer. As we simply breathe into this moment, sensing, feeling, knowing that even the breath itself is a sacred act of the divine. There is that which breathes in and that which breathes out, and there is that which breathes us. And so we are aware of this one life that is greater and more powerful. And yet it is exactly who we are. It is as if we are the ocean, the drop of the ocean in the ocean, of the same qualities and characteristics of that which is the whole. And so as we join together in this moment of awareness, of consciousness, we recognize our inherent divinity, that our divine inheritance is to be one with that which is. In the fullness of life, we bear witness to the presence of peace, of love, of joy, of harmony, of all good. And so we call forth that which is already so. We know that we are abundant beings right here and right now, for we are one with the source and substance of all that is. We allow greater prosperity to be made manifest in our lives, for we know our true identity. We recognize the presence of unconditional love. And we allow that to be revealed, to heal and transform our relationships, to allow the highest vision of possibility to make itself known as we fully and freely forgive ourselves, as we fully and freely forgive those who we perceive to have harmed us. We find a place of peace and a new possibility emergent. We know that wholeness reveals itself as health, well-being, and vitality, for we are one with that which is whole and that which is always in perfect harmony with itself. We simply accept our greater good right now as we move into this moment, into this holy instant. We realize there's nothing to make happen. There's simply that which needs to be made welcome. And it is already available for our recognition of it. So we allow our lives to be healed, transformed. We move out of the past. We let go of the future, and we reside in the here and now. There is peace. There is wholeness. There is harmony. There is love. All good is available for us right here, right now. And so we recognize that we are blessed. We are blessed beyond measure. We give thanks for the many blessings in our lives. We give thanks for the blessings of this spiritual community that continues to grow and thrive in the ways of the divine, that is abundantly supplied and divinely guided and directed. We bless our brothers and sisters around the planet, for we know there is a consciousness emerging of the oneness of humanities, that we are brothers and sisters. And as we recognize that, we are holding the high vision for a world that works for all, for a planet at peace. And as is our custom and our tradition, we bless all teachers, all spiritual paths, all ministers, rabbis, all teachers of every faith. For we know and celebrate there are many pathways to divine understanding and unfoldment. we bless them all. How good it is to come together in this spiritual awareness, allowing it to be revealed through us for our highest good. And so I release this word into divine law, that intelligence which knows what to do and how to do it for the highest good of all. In joy and gratitude, then, I simply allow it to be so, as together we say, and so it is.